Hello everyone, welcome to Maritime Software Hub, the People Podcast. Today I've got a special guest. I'm really excited to have a sit down and have a good short talk with Paul-Louis Holi, who's got his own podcast and is also now a trainee broker at BRS. So Paul, welcome to the show. I'd love it if you could introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your background.
First of all, thank you, Callum, to invite me on this podcast. I think you're doing a very good job with your podcast. And I think podcasting, this is the best way, to give more visibility to our industry. So my name is Paul-Louis. I'm currently working as a trainee shipbroker at BRS. But before, I just finished my studies at Rotterdam University of Applied Sciences. So it was, I would say, 2 years ago. And at the same time, I built my own podcast. So I think we're going to cover this topic as well. So yes, I think that's everything about me. I'm coming from the south of France. I think you can notice from my accent.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Excellent. Beautiful place. Yeah. So I spent a lot of my, I guess, late teens and early 20s I used to be really into surfing. So I used to go to like Osego and Biarritz.
Yeah.
And around that, and then drive across to sort of obviously Antibes and which I think you spent some time around there. So very, very nice.
Yeah, I'm from Antibes basically. So,
yeah.
Cool. So
Yeah, good. Well, no, really, really delighted to have you on. And today we're going to talk about, we've kept it pretty broad. We've said like general kind of career opportunities for kind of shipping professionals in general. And that's going to cross over between the kind of commercial shipping side and also more so on the shipping technology and the digital space. And I guess for any perhaps might be listening that haven't kind of spoken to me before, my background is also shipbroking. My family were sale and purchase shipbrokers primarily. And then I started off in shipbroking for my grandfather's company. And then I did a bit of a stint at SSY. And then I went and joined Clarkson's as their recruitment manager. And I was helping kind of, among other hires, but also helping run the trainee broker program selection. So we'll talk about this as we go through the chat. But for 4 years, I was kind of almost like the first point of contact for anyone that wanted to join the trainee broker program. So I had lots of experience speaking to different types of candidates and the different managers understanding what they look for in brokers and things. So we can talk about that sort of topic, and that could be quite interesting to people that want to pursue that path.
With pleasure.
Awesome, man. So why don't you, we mentioned the podcast. So, the Maritime Vision is the name of the show. And definitely, if anyone listening to my podcast hasn't checked it out, please do. I'd say it's a much more polished version, a better version than ours. But like you have some fantastic guests and you talked about some really in-depth topics like across the shipping finance space. So yeah, why don't you tell us a bit about the podcast and what kind of inspired you to create it?
So it's a good question, Callum. So I think when I was still a student, I was quite new to shipping, but I was not new into the maritime industry because I was working as a yacht manager before. So everything about leisure craft. So I knew that having a very strong network, having knowledge, this is very, very important in this industry. So I was a student. I was like, how can I, improve my network, increase my network, at the same time, gain knowledge. And I knew that I like content creation. I had a couple YouTube channels. Most of them failed. I tried. So I said like, okay, I think podcasting, I could try. I could give a try. If it doesn't work, at least I meet people, I gain knowledge. So that's the reason why I created the Maritime Vision podcast. So as you know, at the beginning, it was not easy to get a guest because you always need to explain why are you doing a podcast, the goal of the podcast, your audience. But at the beginning, you don't have any audience. So at the beginning, it was very hard. It was very, when you see the first podcast episodes, it's like draft. It doesn't look, I'm not very happy about the end result. But I think by doing, I became more comfortable with it. And then I decided to make the podcast completely physically. Before I do it like remotely, which is very nice. But then I wanted to have more like this meet people in real life. I think for me was the best way to connect, not only through podcasting, but as well to meet them in the future, to just build a relationship. So So now my goal with this podcast, this is just to give more visibility to our industry and educate people. Maybe you notice that every time I add a title, it's like masterclass.
Yeah.
So, I try to give like free knowledge to the world, because it's very hard to get knowledge in this industry, because the resources are it's hard to get knowledge, especially in shipbroking. So I wanted to, to feature people working in the industry and just ask them every questions people want to ask, actually. And sometimes you don't have access to a network, you don't have access to professionals. So to answer to all these questions helped, I think, the maritime community.
Yeah, I agree. It is very much almost like a bit of not a secret industry in a sense, but especially shipbroking. Like, unless you're kind of from it or you know somebody in it, the general public don't know too much about it. So it's hard to get accurate information. I mean, you can Google lots of stuff. What does a shipbroker do? That sort of thing, and there's lots of different takes on it. So I think you're speaking to people in person, getting their real experiences is really, really key. So that's awesome.
Exactly.
And so now we'll talk about your role. I mean, I have to say, having a podcast is such a fantastic way of opening doors and getting your brand out there. Your personal brand in particular is great. And I think from any hiring company, like a broker house or whatever, it's such a great step. Like you've almost fast tracked 5 or 6 steps to knocking on doors, and you now know who most of the ship owners are, the charterers, and they know your name, a number of them. So great idea. And I obviously talked about shipbroking. So tell us a bit about, if you don't mind, obviously BRS, and I think fantastic for them to take you on and bring you into the team. So tell us a bit about the company BRS and obviously what they do.
Okay, it's quite a funny story, because when I knew BRS, I mean, for a long time since I joined the industry, but as well I did a podcast with one shipbroker, with Yasmin. She's based in Abidjan. So it was 6 months ago, and during the podcast she told me about this graduate program. And I was like, quite interesting. Maybe I can consider myself as well to join the program. I knew that I wanted to become a shipbroker. I will explain to you maybe later why. So that's how I knew the company. So then I applied, and hopefully for me it works, and I got the job. So BRS, basically, this is, I would say, a big shipbroking companies. I mean, I think the top 5 with Clarkson, SSY, Gibson, we have Robinson, we have many of them.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a good way to learn, because big companies give you, big overview of different markets. It's not only S&P, it's not only chartering. You touch to almost everything. So that's why it was perfect. And I'm surrounded by very good brokers. So for me, it's the best way to learn. I can ask them questions that can guide me. And as you know, I think shipbroking, this is very hard at the beginning, because it's like creating your own company. You need to build everything from scratch. So that's why for me it was very important to have to work in a big company. But I would say that I got the job thanks to, of course, the podcast, my network, but as well, I know a couple of people in the industry. But again, I think it's all about thanks to the podcast. So I will say again later, but I think networking, this is the only way to be successful as a young person in this industry.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think if you can put yourself out there and get your name out there and get. I always said at Clarkson's, I was just thinking, look, all you really need is someone to like you, and ideally recommend you to someone, just to get you in front of a decision maker. So whether that's studying, obviously you study with different sort of students and teachers, and they recommend you, or you understand where kind of brokers or trainee brokers hang out, what they do after work, whatever. You go connect with a few, and then they say, hey, look, I met Paul. He seemed like a really great guy. He's ambitious. I think you should have a chat with him. That was how I would say 80% of the trainee brokers were hired at Clarkson's and other companies I've been at. I would say it's how I joined SSY. They knew my granddad had lots of select number of ship owners that we speak to. So I guess that's how I kind of got that intro. But if you're not from shipping, I definitely think the journey to getting a shipbroking role is tricky.
Yes,
And
exactly.
yeah, so from this is going off piste a bit, but like your friends and colleagues that you've met over the years that haven't come from shipping, but they've applied or they've tried to get into shipbroking, what has the experience been like for them, do you think?
It's a good question. I mean, okay, first of all, many of people in our industry come from like family related, I mean, shipping family, or have a huge network. I think 70%, I will say. But for the 30% who just start from scratch without network, I think you need to have before some experience. I mean, I knew that we have a lot of ex-seafarers, like
Yeah.
people who sail on board ships. It helped a lot for sure. As well, we have people coming from specific master degree. For example, I noticed that in the shipbroking industry, people coming from this CAS business school are quite successful to find a job because the school is quite famous in the industry. So if you are doing a program who help you, to find a job with perfect connections, it will help. So I will say for the people without a strong network, without family working in the industry, join a very renowned school. I mean, it doesn't have to be like Oxford, Harvard. It can be just like a program related to shipping, or it can be just having first experience in for example, it can be like a maritime recruitment for a ship owner, just internship. I think this is quite basic tips, but it helps a lot. I did my internship it's at Stolt Tankers. Stolt, it's
Yeah, so
I think it's the biggest chemical tanker owners, and basically it helped a lot as well.
definitely. Yeah. Any hands-on experience you can get is fantastic. And so, yeah, how did you get that experience? Did you know somebody there, or did you just reach out to them, Stolt?
Yeah, I reached out to them. It was very complicated because every time they asked me for this specific document, sometimes the university cannot provide this document, so I had to push it, and at the end, I succeeded to get all the documents. So for me, I mean, I will say that you need to be very perseverant, very pushy. Huh? It's
Mm.
on be out there, very important. To participate, to show, to events, just talk to to people on, as you said, if people like your personality, if they think that you can do the job, you have big chance to find something after.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's all very, very true. And for the candidates that we used to see that didn't come from like a connection to shipping, so I used to look through the candidates all the time, and then I'd shortlist them and say, right, let's have a chat with these people, and we would look for things, something they've done outside of their studies. Let's say, like what kind of shows us that they're hungry to do a deal, not necessarily just make money, but they're interested and excited about connecting people, or I don't know, making a transaction happen. So if you're like 17, 18, 19, whatever age, that can be maybe, I don't know, you set up your own little like Amazon store, or you've I don't know, you trade stocks, and you've learned about the economics and things, or you just like, I don't know, sold cars or something, and anything that shows that you've got that motivation to do a deal is really key. Whereas if you're just studying, and I think studying is obviously extremely important, and you're applying for trainee broker roles, or any kind of chartering role, but most likely a trainee broker role, they're going to want to see some sort of commercial acumen, like business flair if you can, and you need to showcase that somehow. And yet the way that people also showcase it is maybe by being like awesome at sport, or something from very competitive, that just shows, okay, they've clearly got a drive, and they're able to sort of get hungry and go for it. And that's what we would look for if they didn't have a connection to shipping.
That's true what you say. And I
Yeah,
noticed in chartering, especially, people are a little bit hyperactive. People doing like a lot of different jobs, a lot of different positions. So I think it's quite important to. Sorry for the noise.
that's okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and we would say that like some people just suit different departments. So some characters are more like suited to, as you said, chartering, and then maybe they might be more suited to perhaps a tanker chartering role as opposed to dry cargo chartering. And then obviously there's sale and purchase, or maybe they could be really, really suitable for an analysis focused role. So a lot of people came in wanting to be a broker. They've got fantastic degrees and they're studying. And then actually, when they dig down a little bit, they thought, you know what? Actually, a career in, I don't know, like LNG market research or tankers research could be just as exciting, because you're still speaking to ship owners, you're still kind of working in a broking world, and you're putting yourself out there, you're presenting and speaking, but maybe you don't have that same kind of commercial pressures as a sales role. So we always found that actually some people might be slightly more suited to slightly different areas. So it's good to think about that. Don't just get excited about the word trainee broker, because there's lots of other paths that are associated and can be really, really rewarding.
Yeah, on the
as well.
entrepreneurial spirit as well. You know, when you mentioned we like profile, you know, who like created their own, I don't know, e-shop, or they trade crude oil in after studies. I mean, it shows that you can create something in the company. You can be able to you know, to bring a new account because when you start as a junior broker, basically, first of all, you will help the senior brokers. But secondly, maybe they want you to just try to connect people. If, for example, if you can like just invite someone at the company, like creating a meeting, like just with a potential client, it's something. It shows that you really want to create value to the company, and that's something that all shipbroking company will appreciate.
Yeah, no, it's great. And you said something earlier about being persistent and not giving up. And we helped hires that would literally take over a year to make. And just because the timing wasn't quite right, maybe on a certain desk, and someone would keep pushing and pushing, and they'd ring back and they'd keep trying, and then eventually the slot opened, and they went for it. And I would also say, you mentioned about being in a big company is fantastic, because you have lots of scope to kind of see different departments, and I do agree with that. But also, I think with the smaller broking houses, I know we're talking a lot about broking here, but that's fine. I highly recommend joining it if you can get the opportunity. A smaller broking house, don't just go for the biggest ones, because the smaller teams, you might be sat right next to a charterer or an analyst, or the head of, I don't know, head of dry cargo might be on your desk, as opposed to like sitting in rows and rows and rows of 10, 12 brokers. You got 6 other trainees that are like fighting to go up the ladder. So like you mentioned, the smaller houses, smaller to medium size, are really valuable as well.
And you cannot hide in a little shop. You cannot like pretend you are doing something. You need to do something. So I will say the degree, the amount of responsibility is quite high. So maybe if it's maybe in terms of progression, it's a good way to start with a little shop, because you need to go to you cannot wait. I mean,
good,
like
cool.
big companies as well, but I will say that big companies, it's like they give you more time to learn, and you know, you have less responsibility from the beginning, you know. So on little shop, you always need to start like 100%, like to try to create business, try to, of course you learn, but at the same time you need to you need to bring value from the beginning.
Yeah, no, awesome. Okay, good. So for anyone looking at obviously the world of broking and then taking that path, what does a day in the life look like for you? So since you've joined, kind of what have been your early kind of experiences and I guess duties do you think so far?
So when you start as a trainee broker, what you do basically, this is, for example, morning report. So you analyze the market, you help senior brokers with all the current rates. For example, if you're in tanker desk, you have the world scale. So you have different routes, for example, TD6. So you need to, it change every day. So the rates are changing, evolving. So you need to send a report to your clients every morning to give them informations. In exchange, they trust you and you can make business with them. So you can be responsible to make this morning report. You can do sometimes, if you are like quite have this, I will say, a very curious person, you can still doing ship positions from I mean, from the first days they can give you this task. Of course, you will always at the beginning compare the result with senior brokers, but after doing it, you will be very, I would say, very like efficient at this task. You can as well, of course, asking questions on asking to help, for example, with compliance, all this stuff. Sometimes when you make a deal, you need to make sure this deal is compliant. So, for example, you need to make sure that it's not like a non-trading area.
Yeah.
So you need to check online everything. You can as well call ship agent. For example, if you need a port cost to estimate your voyage, you
Yeah.
need to call port agents. So something that trainee brokers do a lot. At the beginning, it's not easy, but after by doing it, it's becoming very easy to do. So I would say that's basically all the task you will make as a young broker.
Okay, awesome. Good. And then sort of moving on a little bit to the second part of our discussion is going to be the element of technology and how that's kind of shaping shipping and broking and in general. And that's obviously, I mentioned at the start, I think that I run a recruitment agency called Callum Beaumont, and we specialize in mainly in maritime software companies. We help them recruit salespeople, product managers, and we also recruit for ship owners and charterers as well, for commercial shipping people. But more so now, we're seeing obviously technology suppliers kind of sell to broking houses. So how much, I don't know if a BRS obviously embracing technology is maybe as much as others, or maybe they do more, but so far your experience, have you had much exposure to different sort of SaaS platforms and tools?
Yes, we do. I
Yeah.
mean, at BRS, we use this platform for ship positions, chartering, everything. No, we use technology. I think it's very important. I would say that broker without technology right now, it's impossible to be competitive. I would say, because it helps you a lot. For example, by following the ships, you always need to know the position of the ship. You need to know to update the last fixtures, everything. So I would say technology is very important. And from the first day at BRS, I immediately use this software, this SaaS platform,
Excellent.
and we use many of them, and not just only one. So that's why it's very important. And I know that on the market, everyone is using a platform, a SaaS. Even like little shop now, they are trying to develop their own solution or just make partnership with other companies. So it will become very. I think it's very crucial in this industry.
Yeah, it's great to hear that it's being utilized. When I was in broking, there was nothing really. I mean, S&P, you don't necessarily need as many tools, but like in chartering, I did during my placement year, I did a 6 months chartering and a few months in different owners' offices in Greece. And there was no sort of SaaS tools back then. This is like 2004, I think, or something. So back in the dark ages in terms of tech. But so now it's great that you're utilizing the technology. And do you get trained when you join? Do you have somebody internally that's helping you understand how to use the tool? Okay, awesome.
Yes, we have even a team focused on managing all the database on the SaaS, all the platforms. So we have IT department as well. So no, we take it very seriously, technology, and you need to know to use the software. Sometimes it's not really easy because it's a big software. You have many. I will say you have for tanker, you have for dry bulk, you have for different markets. And each market is a different solution because you need different tools. For example, to calculate a voyage, so to estimate a voyage, is not the same for dry bulk than tanker. You have the world scale with tanker. For dry bulk, it's completely different. So that's why it's very important. And I think in the future we're going to use more and more technology. And I will say we will maybe use AI for many tasks, I would say.
Yeah, no, I agree, and this is why it's important for anyone that wants to be a broker as well is to think digitally, essentially, like do some learning or training. I don't know, in basic tech, like even things like Python or data analysis tools that you can get your hands on. Obviously, you don't necessarily need it in a sales role, but it's still really, really kind of important to have. And I imagine, I mean, during your masters and your studies, I imagine nowadays they're doing lots of sort of case studies and working on different technologies there. I would have thought.
Yes, of course. I mean, all students watching your episode knows that, for example, ChatGPT helps a lot. Basically, I mean, we use it a lot as a student. Without it, I think I'm quite scared for the new people the youngest, because they use a lot new technology, and especially ChatGPT, for example. And maybe we will lost our own, the skill to just to write stuff, to think by yourself. And even myself sometimes I ask the question, but sometimes I just translate something or correct a paragraph without just by sending the text on. I think there are pros and cons depending the.
Yeah, I use it every day, ChatGPT. So I would write something like an article, or maybe not an article, like a paragraph, whether it's about a vacancy or about a company or something, even an email. Sometimes I would put it into chat, just because my English sometimes is terrible. So I want to sort of correct the grammar a little bit. And it's so helpful, and it gives you different ideas for things. So yeah, it's been hugely impactful, definitely. And I guess then, so technology side, if we look at that a bit more, in terms of a career path, did you ever consider, I know you've had exposure in certain areas and you've talked about it on your podcast and things. So did you ever consider going down that route, as in maybe a software sales type of role or something along those lines?
Talking about myself, I would say that I think to be good at my job, if I want to work more like with technology related, I think traditional shipping would be helpful. So I prefer to start like as a normal job, I would say, like shipbroker, a maritime lawyer, this very traditional job. And then maybe in a few years, why not working in early stage company, venture fund, to help these new technologies. But again, depending your personality, for me, it would be more like to connect people. So if I do something related to technology, it will be more like working for a venture capital, just to try to find new technologies and help them find fund on this stuff. Could be a great path for, 20 years or even 10 years, I don't know. But no, I sometimes I think about it, but my tips would be maybe just start with a traditional job to understand the industry, because shipping is very traditional. So if you start with this traditional job, it will help you to understand and to be legitimate. I think it's very important. People will trust you more if you start from as you did actually. You started like in shipbroking. Now you are doing completely different, but you still have this background, and I'm sure it helps you a lot in the shipping industry.
Yeah, no, this is very, very true. And I think if you're a graduate, do you think, did you see many career opportunities in technology? Like, I mean, I'm talking mainly software sales, because that's primarily what we do. But were there many jobs advertised for kind of entry level or students, or was it more the senior stuff? Do you think that you mainly seen?
That's a good question. Actually, I noticed a lot of companies like this SaaS, for example, they're looking for salespeople a lot, because it's all about selling more like solutions. Finding IT people, it's how to get them. They're coming from, coders, all this stuff. But salespeople in this, I will say, SaaS solution, you never know what kind of profile you need. If you need someone with a like maritime background, or in my experience, I didn't find many opportunities in. Not yet. But I know people are looking for it. So I don't understand sometimes why we don't have advertisement of I would say IT jobs or sales representative for technology, for SaaS, for every kind of tech companies. But I know that if you talk to the CEO, he always needs people. So it's quite tricky, the equation. So
Yeah, it is definitely. And as you said it earlier, it's like the end user of the platform, whether it's I don't know, chartering manager or maybe like the head of IT, you will have more credibility, as you said, if you've got a few years experience as a charter or a freight trader or something. And then you're telling them, all right, you should use this platform because it will save this much money or reduce time and cost. And you may not be able to articulate that if you haven't had that hands-on experience yourself. So that's why most of the software companies, they want to try and hire someone that ideally have got some experience. or they want someone that's sold software before, so they just understand the software sales cycle. So there definitely are opportunities out there for more graduate and people with a year or two's experience in sales, but I would say it's primarily the mid to senior level where you see kind of vacancies advertised, and that's where we specialize in, to be honest.
Exactly.
So I think my goal of having you on was really to learn more about your background, obviously kind of hopefully introduce some of our audience to your podcast as well, but also to hopefully, if you share our episode and stuff, to open the eyes to some more of your audience that maybe haven't considered the technology side of shipping as a career path. So I'd love it if anyone has any questions, just to feel to reach out to me anytime, obviously. And on the flip side, if anyone wants to reach out to Paul, they can do, about how his journey's being. I assume they can. I'm just sort of making putting it out there for you. Okay, awesome. Anything else you'd like to share? Any kind of other tips for people kind of early stage of their career?
Yeah, I think if I want to say something, work on your network. I mean, it will be helpful for your entire career. I mean, it's very important. So try to be opportunistic, try to go on the field, try to participate to as much as event as possible. I mean, it's very important. If you don't have this benefit in life if you're not coming from this shipping family, I say it's very important for you. You need to work hard and you need to be perseverant. You need to go on the field. You need to participate to early events, to pay tickets just to travel to Singapore, just to meet people there. I mean, it's the only way for you to get there, I would say. And as well, you need to be knowledgeable. So try to read as much as possible. Now it's becoming quite easy with podcasts, with YouTube videos, with books. You have ICS, for example. It's a very nice institute if you want to know more about chartering. So yeah, knowledgeable, network, on having good soft skills as well. Try to be smiling, for example. It changed everything in this industry because it's like it's relationship industry. So you will meet people and people will judge you from the beginning. So if you smile, if you show that you really want to, you are the good guy, it will help for sure. So I think for me it worked a lot to always be optimistic, enthusiastic. It makes you more like, I would say, people who say, I want to work with him or with her,
Definitely. That's really important. And I think understanding that kind of reason why you want to be in whatever path you take is so important. I'm sure you know there's the whole Simon Sinek and like starting with your why type of thing. And even when I used to sit in a number of the trainee broker interviews, one of the first questions they'd ask, like quite flippantly, is like, why broking? Like they'd often be like completely knackered and like a bit stressed out, and they'd be like, why would you want to do this? And the reason why they're asking that is because 99% of the time you're kind of dealing with setbacks or you're knocked back, and you're not getting paid until you do a deal and then you get commission through. So it's like recruitment. Unless you work in certain ways, you don't get paid until someone starts, and then you get paid, hopefully. So you gotta have that resilience. So when you say, okay, why shipbroking, it's like you need to have a pretty strong reason to be able to be for them to think, okay, he's got the resilience, or she. So I think it's really important
easy job.
to get that. It's not, definitely.
Work-life balance, at some point you can have it, but at the beginning you will need sometimes to sacrifice a little bit. You still need to practice sport. I mean, to be in good shape, everything, but you will work a lot on the people think that shipbroker, this is I notice even with, when I'm doing my podcast, every time I'm doing podcasts with shipbrokers, it's the number of views is very high. It's insane. Because every time people ask me, what is the salary? Everyone thinks that this is the dream job, but at the end, I don't think it is. It's based on your personality, and not everyone can make this job. If you like adrenaline, you like this, it can work. But if you prefer more like having comfortable life, I won't suggest to be a shipbroker, because it will be very painful.
No, I agree. Well, definitely. I mean, my granddad, I said, was broker for 59 years or so, and my mum was a broker for 10 years. So I've kind of been all around the family, and it's taken toll. Like, I think it's nearly cost like marriage, like divorce and that sort of stuff, it can really be full on. Like if you let it take over your life, and like there'll be weeks where you're working and you think, oh, Tuesday night I'm going to go play football after work, and then your boss says, oh, by the way, the manager from Vito or whatever is here this week. You're coming out, and you're like, okay, you just have to you just go with it. So
Yeah, exactly.
it is full on, but it's an amazing career, and you meet some fantastic people from all over the world. And as I said, you also do the same in technology. You're still speaking to the same companies. You can still speak to the heads of chartering desks and head CEO, C-suite of ship owners and charterers. So there's really great opportunities out there, and it's awesome to speak to you about this, Paul. So if anyone has any questions, is it okay if anyone reaches out to you, or what's the best way for them to do so?
They can contact me on LinkedIn or just by sending me a message on LinkedIn. It will be very easy to do.
Cool. All right, great. Well, I'll put the links to your podcast and everything in the show notes. And if anyone has any questions for me, obviously send me a message as well. It's callum@cordellbeaumont.com, or just send me a message on LinkedIn.
Thank you, Callum, for this opportunity. I think you're doing a very great job in the industry. You need to continue making these episodes, and especially in your niche, digital niche. I think in many years, the audience will grow on. We can see on statistics that people are listening more and more podcasts. So yeah.
No, definitely. And I mean, shameless plugs here, but no, I actually created a course called like a mini course on like video, and I know you've featured some things like that as well. It's called the like Introduction to Commercial Shipping, and it's amazing how much the uptake has gone on recently, and mainly from people that are in a technology company that want to learn a bit about the like a fast track insights to commercial shipping. So definitely check out that. And I've got a book called The Essential Guide to Becoming a Shipbroker as well. Another shameless plug.
It's your book, yeah.
Yeah, man. And I can't believe how people, many messages, I still get that. I wrote that in 2020. And I always joked initially, I wanted to do something just to pay for my motorbike at the time. and the amount of like feedback I've had from that, and like I've spoken to so many people that have helped them out. I mean, it's a very, very short guide, but anything like that, any questions about that or whatever, just feel free to reach out. And I'm sorry for doing shameless plugs, but it might help your audience.
For sure. Thank you, Callum.